𝐴𝐻𝐸𝐴R, the educational gurukul, a startup by German and American university alumni. Coaching classes from 9 to 12th and career counseling services.
Hi guys and welcome to 𝗏𝗏𝗏. आज हम बात करने वाले हैं कुशाग्र मांगलिक से. He is currently the research software engineer at IBM Research Labs. Previously, he has completed his BTech in EEC, that is Electrical, Electronics and Communications Engineering from IIT Kanpur. Super intuitive interview, super intriguing for everyone with a lot of examples from different industries. So don't forget to like this video and also subscribe to 𝗏𝗏𝗏. And please continue watching 𝗏𝗏𝗏. We love the support that you're giving us. And let's directly get into the questions that we asked Kushagra, who was super nice and who was super available in working around our schedule. So thank you so much, Kushagra. And it was an amazing experience having him on 𝗏𝗏𝗏. So without further ado, let's directly jump into talking to Kushagra.
So in Kanpur, we did not have that distinction between EEE and EE as such. So there's this one umbrella, EE, and under that you have all sorts of sub-branches sort of thing, electronics, communications, so in this manner, yes. Okay. So conventionally in some colleges like, let's say IIT Guwahati, over there they have ECE, Electronics and Communication Engineering, but that kind of thing we didn't have in our college. They continued with the conventional naming system. So in IIT Delhi as well, the same nomenclature is followed in Delhi, in Bombay.
Okay. All right. So what is the future scope of EEE industry?
So as per me, EEE industry has been there. The scope has never died down, but due to certain international events and the crisis in the health sector as seen in the recent times during COVID, as well as various policies of the government, the scope of EEE has sort of magnified, I would say. The relevance and the scope of EEE, it has magnified. So let's say how. So let's say we analyze the health sector. There is a new concept of biosensors and wearable implants that is coming up. So in that, what the focus would be basically implanting a particular device in your body. Now, what would it do? It would basically, let's say you have a device in your body and it is monitoring your glucose level. And as and when it drops, the insulin would be injected automatically. So for that particular, to be able to implant a chip inside your body, the semiconductor part of EEE would come into the picture. Then let's say we come to the telecommunication aspect. So due to the national security reasons and as well as this India-China war tension, there has been an increased demand for indigenization of the communication hardware, both for the security purpose as well as to reduce the reliance on import from China and other countries as well. So there would be an increase in the demand for people who would be specializing in communications aspect to be able to bring about the 5G revolution in India, vis-a-vis 5G test beds and developing state-of-the-art technologies using FPGA and GPU-based systems. So okay, I'm throwing these jargons, but what I'm trying to say is that each of the sub-branches in EEE sector, be it communication, be it semiconductors, all these would have their individual role to play down the line. Now, let's say a major step by the government recently was that it has announced that it would be setting up the fabrication units in India. So fabrication unit has been a major piece of puzzle that has been missing from the manufacturing map of India. If it comes to India, the fabrication units, they are set up in India, then it would basically help us in manufacturing these solar cells end to end. Right now, what is happening is that India is basically an assembler of these solar cells. So let's say 4 stages are there in the manufacturing of the cell. So India is currently just assembling all the pieces imported from various countries.
Okay.
But what is required is end-to-end manufacturing, and that would be possible only if the fabrication units are there. So fabrication unit basically deals with again the semiconductor part of the Tripoli. Semiconductor as in pure devices and circuits part of Tripoli. And then another concept is of telemedicine, which deals with providing remote healthcare. So providing healthcare to people living in the remote areas via the doctors in urban areas. So so now to bridge the gap between the urban and rural healthcare, we would need efficient communication infrastructure to ensure video transmission and high quality video transmission because in that case basically the x-rays of a person would be traveling vis-a-vis would be traveling would be no, won't be handed over physically to the doctor. It would be basically traveling via the internet. So you need to retain the quality of the image. That is essential in X-ray, right? It's a small example, but overall the scope. I don't find any reason why the scope of Tripoli has diminished. It is only going to increase down the line. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So what I'm trying to understand is it's kind of like a backbone to all of these different industries and interconnectedness between
Yes.
sectors, and it's just upcoming.
Yeah.
Like how you were saying, the different fabrication of all of this. It's like even in India, if we are not manufacturing it right now with like 𝐴𝐻𝑒 and all of these different government policies that are coming up, that's what the aim is in the future, to actually come back and start forming those or start producing all of these units from end-to-end manufacturing from India itself.
Yes. So the transition from being an assembler to being an end-to-end manufacturer would be possible if people are there with skill sets, having skill sets that would enable that, and for those skill sets, EEE would be one of the major skill set. I'm not saying it is the only skill set, but that would be one of the major, as you said, the backbone of bringing about this revolution or the transition.
Okay. So next question. I know you scored really well, but for students scoring 85% or below, or approximately 85%, and getting a private college for EEE, so should they go for it, or in scope of EEE versus CSE, which is better?
So, in my opinion, there cannot be a definite answer for this question, as in that if a person gets above this marks, then you should opt for this particular branch or that particular branch. As in, there cannot be a blanket statement saying that you should go for that branch. So, so why am I saying this? So let's analyze what is happening in current scenario in most of the colleges vis-a-vis these two branches. So the faculty is there, the courses are there, the standard courses are there in all the colleges, but the method in which the knowledge is being imparted or is being measured, whether the student has actually learned or not, that is differing from college to college. So how is that happening? So assignments are being given in all the colleges in all the both these branches, but in most of the colleges, what is happening is that is a on rote learning, and the question are given. You just have to pick the answer directly from the textbook, and you have to just copy and paste. So in that case, you might as well have don't give the assignments at all. So they are just the formality of providing the assignments is being uh, basically is being satisfied. Instead, what should happen is that these assignments, they should push the students out of their comfort zone. Okay, so eventually a particular formula has to be applied, right? That is fine, but the thought process or the thinking that has to go in before arriving at a conclusion that okay, I have to apply this formula. That particular part is missing. Right now, what is happening is a question is there, student just instantly knows, okay, this formula has to be applied. Okay, I apply the formula and the part is solved. But that is not contributing towards the learning. Okay, it will fetch him marks, that him or her marks, but that is fine. But as soon as he steps out into the industry, over there, that skill, what they say that there's a mismatch between the skill set That is why that is happening. So since they were not being pushed out of their comfort zone, and they were not being forced to think slightly out of the box, so that is why that shortcoming is there. And second aspect is, especially in CSE, what is happening in most of the colleges, the coding assignments that play a crucial role in that branch, but they don't have this policy of plagiarism to check for plagiarism. And that, so in the absence of that policy, what is happening is students, they tend to copy the code. So that's basically the whole idea of providing assignments so that the student learns to code is rendered useless in this scenario. There should be a strict policy, and this policy is there in many, like in our college as well, in many of the, in almost all the IITs, this policy is there. But in majority of the colleges, that policy is not being followed at all. So the whole idea of assignments and the coding assignments being there is it's there for the formality, but it's not adding any value to the students' learning as such right now. So there has to be a change in the formulation, how the faculty formulates these assignments. Now let's say this scenario is there. So what happens is, in this scene, the student realizes that, okay, this is not contributing to anything to my education, or it's not proving beneficial as soon as I step out for the industry. So he shifts to internet for online resources. Now, in case of electrical, what is happening is, or Triple E, what is happening is that there is a certain prejudice from the society, as well as the way the courses are being taught in the college. So that, okay, it's a dry branch, there's only maths in it. The faculty also just focuses on the formula, on the equation that is eventually is derived, but they are not focusing on the intuitive explanation behind those equations, or actually what is happening inside the circuit. So there has to be a intuitive understanding or explanation of the circuit in case of Triple E, let's say. So let's say there's something known as Fourier transform, Fourier series. You have to have a particular intuitive idea of what is actually happening. Okay, equations can be derived eventually, that is fine. But what is actually happening? What is its significance in the real world? That is missing. So in the absence of that, Triple E is thrown out. Student, he stops focusing on that particular thing. Now what next? He shifts to let's say towards the courses that are being offered in the computer science. The advantage in computer science is that over there, the online community for computer science, it's quite active. The engagement is quite good. So let's say in coding, there are various platforms for coding where it's like a small community of coders who basically knowledge sharing of knowledge is quite common over there. They share the knowledge. There are frequent hackathons and coding challenges happening. So there is an extrinsic motivation for the students to participate and to learn, right? A learning happens only when there is a internal motivation as well as an external validation. So that validation is coming from those challenges when a student participates and he sees that, okay, I'm performing this much, his performance is improving, the graph is going down or up. So in case of Triple E, that external validation is also missing, as well as that internal motivation to study the subject is missing. So these are the two aspects of Triple E versus computer science. That is, I mean to say, the one branch being pitched against the other. I see it this way, that why is it happening? It is because in one branch there is an external motivation, external validation, as well as an internal motivation to perform, and in the other branch both the aspects are missing. Triple E also requires some patience, because what happens is that to be able to enter into an industry and to be able to perform, to have meaningful contribution, you have to have a certain amount of experience in terms of courses. You have you should have taken a certain fair amount of advanced level courses, and for that I feel that higher education in case of Triple E is sort of not, I would not say mandatory, but it would add to your profile. It would add to your bargaining value in the market. Since
sorry, I'm interrupting there. You talked about the internal and external motivation for Tripoli. What can you give me more examples of like internal motivations that you had and you applied?
So internal motivation, internal motivation comes from the fact that you are aware that okay, I am doing this, so it won't go useless. There are opportunities outside that would basically that would help that I would be able to grab based upon the courses that I'm doing. So these are not, it's not a waste. Right now the students have this mentality that this is waste, this is of no use. And that again comes because of the manner in which they are being taught. If in a course you are only being taught you have to just apply this equation straightforward, or you are being asked simple definitions, then automatically you would tend to believe that this is of no use because you are not being challenged mentally in that particular case. So you would tend to believe that okay, since it's not challenging, then it might as well have no use in my future. I see it that way. So, but again, coding is something that I believe all the students, irrespective of any branch, they should learn, because it's not only about grabbing the placement, but it helps to boost your thinking ability and problem solving ability, and that is quite beneficial, and it's an important tool to have right in your kit, irrespective of any field that you enter, whether it's coding or consulting, or let's say core for electrical or for any branch. That problem solving ability has to be there. So coding teaches you that to a great extent. So I believe that should be there for all the branches. Yeah. So to conclude, I would say that we cannot make a blanket statement. Students can go for either of the branches, but at the same time, they should remember that making a switch from EEE to CSE, it's easier as compared to CSE to EE, because both the branches, they find their foundation in maths ultimately. But EEE also has certain other fields that you won't have exposure to if you are in CSE. Let's say the circuits part. Communication is purely in maths, purely based on maths, but the circuits part is not that mathematically intensive. It's based on more on semiconductor physics. So you will have the exposure to that only if you are in EEE. So they can go for either of them. Both grabbing a particular student doing well in IT sector, or grabbing a high profile job, he's not grabbing it by virtue of being a CS student from a college. He's grabbing it because he has a good profile in coding.
Okay.
In a nutshell, I would say that.
So आपका अपना level of motivation, आपका अपना hard work, as in all industries, यहाँ पर भी बहुत ज़्यादा actually matter करता है, क्योंकि faculty तो एक limit तक काम कर लेगी, उसके बाद आप कैसे करते हो उसके ऊपर वो depend करेगा.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I'm not blaming the faculty at all. It's an effort from both the sides. The faculty has a certain amount of change has to be from that side as well as from student side as well. Yeah.
So, what are the skills one must acquire during EEE to get into particularly IT industry?
So, to be able to get into the IT sector, as I said, coding is imperative. There's no two way about that. You have to, if you want to grab a good job in an IT sector and have a meaningful impact or contribution, you need to know coding, and you have, and the level, the kind of job that you'll be able to fetch is directly proportional to the level of proficiency that you have in coding. And for that, there are various coding online platforms that are available online. So I'll name a few: CodeChef, Codeforces. Then there's Geeks for online tutorials. So there are numerous platforms, and they conduct, and it's a very organized community that, and it's all for free. It's not paid at all. And they conduct regular challenges, as in coding challenges, 10 days challenge, then 3-hour challenges, 2-hour challenge. and there's a in detail evaluation of the questions that are coming over there. They discuss the solutions to that, various approaches. So it's kind of a they also release a rank board, so you can measure your performance against other people as well from around the world. So you tend to get that validation as well, and there's a motivation to outperform your own performance as well from the previous challenge competition. And so based upon if you have built a decent amount of profile on these, because they give you these kind of points as well based upon your performance, so they cumulatively add up, and they and eventually there's a certain bracket out there in the market that if you tend to cross these many points on this platform, then you tend to get an easy referral for off-campus placements. So I would say coding has to be there if you want to get into an IT sector.
What other leadership skills or soft skills are required?
For coding as such, I would say, see, having a good soft skills and communication skills, that surely does pay off. But for coding interviews as such, they don't. If you're just able to present what is there in your mind, see, it would be entirely technical. They won't beat around the bush. It would be purely technical, and they won't even see. They don't judge you based upon what leadership roles you held in the colleges and any such stuff. That plays a huge role in the consulting profiles.
Mm-hmm.
But in coding profile, that doesn't play that important role. It's purely technical, the interviews, and it's just that you should be able to convey your thoughts, what you're thinking, in a fairly decent manner. That's it. But yeah, but I'm not saying that you should not work upon your soft skills. That is important eventually, because eventually once you enter the industry, then over there you people would realize that, okay, I'm lagging behind in this particular aspect, because eventually you'll have to present whenever what you have done. So the manner in which you're able to present, that storytelling aspect of presentation, that, as they say, that has to be developed.
So for you can get through coding, but industry में अगर successful बनना है तो soft skills साथ में लेके चलो और coding को ही improve करते रहो.
Yes, because if you have to climb up the ladder in the industry, your presentation skills, your soft skills, they do matter a lot. Because unless and until you've done, there are two people, they've done same amount of work, but the manner in which you are able to brand your work, the kind of work that you've done, that would eventually pay off, right?
All right, perfect. That was very enlightening even for me, as I'm trying to understand the IT industry. So what are the current commercial applications of AI or ML, and even when you're talking about the current applications, what is the scope of both of these?
So first of all, ML is a subset of AI. They are not as such. AI is a bigger umbrella, and ML is basically a branch of that umbrella. You can say comes under that umbrella. So as together, basically they have multiple use cases out there in the industry. To name a few, let's say let's say in the field of agriculture. Let's say now how ML or AI can be used in agriculture. So let's say a farmer is there now. He's planning for his next season, right? How much should he produce, and how much in what ratio should he use the fertilizers and pesticides and so on and so forth. So the ML and AI models, they can be used to precisely point out to the farmer that you should use this much amount of fertilizers in this ratio in order to be able to get this much amount of production. So that is a huge benefit for the farmer, because right now what is happening is, in the agriculture sector, what is happening is that basically there's a lack of scientific agricultural practice that is being carried out. The farmers are using let's say water is being used for irrigation of fertilizers in whatsoever ratio they want to use. There's no so ML and AI, it helps to basically precisely point out in what ratio should you use these inputs. to be able to achieve the desired output. Then the second use case can be like supply chain. Now in supply chain there are it's basically three further subdivisions as an assortment, inventory management, and forecasting. So in each of the three, so it basically boils down to having a right product at the right place at the right time in right quantity. So basically it's quite beneficial. So basically what is how AI and ML comes into the picture is it tends to streamline the entire pipeline of the supply chain and removes the manual intervention. So let's say a shopkeeper is there, he needs to stock for his next season, right? So now right now what he tends to do is that he basically, based upon his gut feeling, he tends to say, okay, I'll stock these many shirts or these many jeans. But based upon accurate models, AI and ML models, they have the capability to tell him that you should stock these, and with proper explanations as to why it is suggesting. So that's quite a powerful tool to boost the revenue for both the shopkeeper as well as to basically ensure that the customer who is coming, they also the scenario of customer visiting and coming back empty-handed, that reduces, right? So for both the customer and as well as the retailer, it's quite beneficial. And then the third sector that can be is again the health sector. So again over there, so basically what can so let's say there are various life threatening diseases, right? For which sometimes the doctors, they tend to say that okay, the chances for survival are less, and they suggest a particular course of treatment. But what we need to know is that the treatment that they suggest is also based upon their data bank, what they have in their mind, based upon the previous history and based upon their knowledge. But what AI and ML models they have is that they can be fed with huge amounts of data, of past data. The cases might not be similar as this particular case, but based upon so it tends to learn, okay, for this particular case, this particular course of treatment worked, for this one worked. So it tends to learn a combination that okay, for this is a new case, for this you should adopt this particular course of treatment, and it might extend the life cycle of a person uh, by by many more years as that was being advised by the doctor. So it would not eliminate the role of a doctor. It's there to help him and facilitate a more accurate course of treatment. Then fourth can be, so let's say there's this upsurge in the digital transactions, right? But at the same time, there's also increasing risk for fraudulent transactions and people falling prey to these various financial scams. So this machine learning, it can be leveraged to identify these fraudulent transactions as well as these scams and prevent a person uh, from being basically vulnerable to these scams. So there are multiple use cases. These are only a few that I could list down. But yes, the scope is immense. And again, it's not the scope is immense, but again, at the same time, we should know that it's all interdisciplinary. It's not that AI or machine learning in isolation would bring about a massive revolution. That combined with various other domains, be it biomedical, be it EEE, be it even chemical, material science, all of them would basically combine in basically in together cumulatively they would bring about the change or the revolution that we expect down the line.
So the examples that you mentioned, the agrarian, supply chain, healthcare, and then more on the money movement and payments platform. I understand money movement and payment platform is more of a global perspective, but in your consideration, is AI also a global tool, or does it have a global aspect, or is it more implied to Indian culture as well as Indian industries aspect as to what's coming up?
See, now let's say the supply chain. Supply chain is basically a global aspect because even abroad, various top brands they are working on the gut feeling. now they are pivoting towards the AI, and they are partnering with the industries to basically bring into this technology. But but 5 years from now, 5 years before from now, basically, let's say up till 2013, 2014, they were basically working kind of working on the gut feeling only. So supply chain has a global aspect to it. It's not that only India is has that loophole in the supply chain. It's at a global level. Then, so by supply chain, I'm not mentioning the logistical issues that are there. The infrastructure issues, I don't mean by those issues. Those can be specific to India, but the issues in removing the manual intervention and bringing in the automation, that is at a global level. Then for healthcare as well, healthcare also, it might happen. It might be so that India has not been able to adopt that this technology into the healthcare sector, but again, and for abroad they have adopted, but again the effect is global, as in it's not that it's a localized phenomena that in India applying ML into healthcare would reap benefits, and whereas abroad it won't. Now, agriculture, I can say that, we can agree to some extent that since our is a agricultural country, so we can say that it's a sort of a localized phenomena. And then again, financial transactions also, I believe that it's a global phenomena. Because
definitely.
I think
Financial, it's more of like UK is coming up with open banking now. Slowly, North America is also coming up with open banking, and that is all AI. That's pretty interesting, but it's all AI. So when you were talking about it, I was kind of connecting with what I'm doing in my job, and I was like, oh my God, that's AI. That somewhere that falls under that bucket.
Okay. So yes. So eventually, as I can see that AI and ML, they would eventually have some rule or even in the fashion industry, because if it comes into supply chain, then fashion industry also comes with it as well. So it would be there in almost all the industries. Yeah. So so 1 decade from now, 1 decade before, in 2000s, no one could have imagined that fashion industry would ML or AI could play a big role in the fashion industry, but it's there now. It's playing a huge role there. So yes, it is going, and especially I forgot to mention about this. So these self-driving cars, there's a huge buzz about that. So it's all about AI also over there. So yeah, it's a global phenomena for some use cases, and in some use cases we can say it is more of a localized phenomena that is specific to our nation.
Very helpful. That was very insightful even for me. So with subjects, can I study on my own if I wish to get into AI and ML field? So do you know any open courses? I know you mentioned the coding resources. You mentioned the 3 tools that can be used. Would you have any other tools or platforms that you would suggest to our viewers?
So before venturing to ML or AI, so what happens is that students, because of these buzzwords out there, AI and ML, they kind of dive straight into these fields without basically learning the prerequisites for these areas. And those prereqs are basically linear algebra and probability and statistics. These two subjects, they play a huge role. Basically, these are the foundations for these areas. If you don't have a command on these, then at some point or the other bound you are bound to stagnate in this area, or won't be able to advance. Both these areas, they find eventually these areas, they boil down to probability and statistics and linear algebra. It's completely this only, I would say. So you should have a thorough understanding of these subjects, and for them, I would say there is this open course, MIT open course by Gilbert Strang on linear algebra. It's quite extensive, as well as the person has given a kind of an intuitive explanation behind all the concepts. And the second one, and for prop stats, I'm not able to recollect a specific course, but on Coursera, on edX, these platforms, you can pursue any course offered or being offered by a top university. So, and then once you're done with these two particular subjects, then you can take up courses specific to machine learning or deep learning or AI. But before taking up courses pertaining to these specific fields, you should have these two courses, that is prop stats and linear algebra. You should have a fair amount of knowledge about them. I'm not saying that you need to master them, but you should have knowledge to such extent that down the line, if at some point you get stuck in some theory, then you are able to reference it and you are able to understand. Okay, this is what is happening over there. You should be able to have that much of understanding. So what I've seen that students, they tend to they ignore these foundational courses, or they are not aware of them. I'm not sure what happens, and they kind of straight dive into these courses that are being offered online on ML and AI. Because since they are also buzzwords, they are out there in the market. It sounds cool if you say that, okay, I'm doing these courses. So we need to be aware of that, of falling into trap. You should proceed in a sequential manner and not do it for the sake of looking cooler, falling trap to these buzzwords. And and plus alongside, you should also learn one language, because eventually you'll need to code what the models that you're building and all that stuff. So Python is preferred in machine learning. Yeah. So any language, but yeah, Python. And for coding, people tend to use C++ while in college for preparing for interviews. Some also tend to use Java.
What language did you learn?
So while in college, I had learned. So in our first year, we had this foundational course on programming. So over there, we were taught C because that is the most basic language. Then for placements point of view, we had learned we coded in C++, and we had also learned Python while doing the machine learning course. See, learning languages, the focus should never be on learning how many languages you know. It should never be there, because once you know coding, see, coding and learning a language is two different aspects. Once you know coding, then learning, see, there are two scenarios. One is that you tend to learn multiple languages and you don't have a good grasp on coding, then that would be of no use. But if you know coding, then learning, having mastery over one or two languages is more than sufficient. And you can, and as and when the opportunity comes and demand comes, you can learn multiple languages. That won't be a big task as well. And the companies, they never focus that how many languages you know. They focus at whether you are able to solve the question or not. The manner in which you approach the question, that is always the main focus.
So critical thinking, reasoning, and then mastery kind of is important. It's not about quantity; it's more about the quality of work.
Yes. Because students, they tend generally there is this notion that, okay, I know this language, I know 5 languages. That is never the case. You should be able to, okay, the question is given, so you should be able to code it up in. If you're able to code it up in one language also, then that is more than sufficient for cracking the interviews. And for machine learning, Python is generally preferred out there. So
I want to wrap it up by putting you on the spot and asking you, what was your best memory from your undergrad?
Best memories from undergrad. Okay, so memories. I won't pinpoint to any particular memory, because see, now when I sit back and I remember my undergrad, so what I remember the most, we had this concept of wing, and that wing is basically comprises of 20 to 30 students depending upon the size of the wing. So, and we used to, the rooms would be adjacent to, the rooms would be on the same floor, and we basically, it was a kind of a closed community. The rooms would be on the same floor, in front or adjacent, right? And these set of 20 to 30 people would be carried throughout the 4 years, as in there was not shuffling. So by the end of the fourth year, you tend to develop a kind of a bond that you share in a family. You're sharing everything. Basically, all the notions of formality, they tend to break down. So there's a huge shift, as in when you arrive on the first day and when you leave on the final day. There's a huge shift in how you converse with them. All the formalities, they tend to break down. So, and what I miss now is basically the sessions, that the time pass sessions that we used to have at night, what we call in IIT in Kanpur, what we used to call the bulla sessions at night. So let's say the bulla session. So they would basically, let's say, so the canteen, the canteen of our hostel, of all the hostels, it used to be open by up till at 2 a.m. in the night. So let's say we walked down at 12 a.m. So it was fixed at 12 or 12:30 we would go down. Then we would have something over there, then come back, and then that half an hour would then extend. We would basically, let's say, sit at someone's room, inside someone's room, or even stand outside and basically make fun of each other. And that would basically extend for 1 hour, 2 hours. At that time, time didn't matter then, because nights were days and days were nights, right?
Yeah.
So I won't be able to pinpoint a particular memory, because each incident it carries its own significance. And then even in the place, then so it was not that we were only having fun, and so we were there in times of distress as well. So let's say during placements, the kind of bond that you would see that has been developed over the past 3.5 years, that is there on display at that time. Because even so, it's kind of, it starts on December 1, and it first phase goes on for about 15 days. So even if a person has been, let's say, placed on particular day, it's not that okay, now I'm placed, I would go and enjoy myself. He ensures that okay, up till all my friends in the wing, they get placed, whoever is sitting for the placements, they tend to go with them. They be there for them morally, can provide them the moral support, because those that is quite a stressful period, right? So over there you see that the camaraderie that you develop over the past 3.5 years, that is there on display in those days. And then the last semester is basically the semester in which we chill, because every people who tend to go out for, let's say, for higher studies, the applications have been done, that procedure, they are waiting for the rejections or acceptances, and placements have been done, and compulsory courses are finished by sixth semester. So you only take electives in the last semester, and generally we tend to take lighter courses in the last semester, so that we can chill with the friends the last time, the last 4 months. So as such, to summarize, I won't say I won't pinpoint to a particular memory. Each and every incident had its own significance, whether it was a high time or a low time. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's actually beautiful, because you kind of, in a really short time, in 2-3 minutes, you kind of actually walked us through your whole undergrad degree. I felt that, and I'm very sure people who are watching would also feel it, because जिस passion से तुम बात कर रहे थे ना, वो उन 20-30 people के बारे में, it felt कि okay, you found another family also, and that you're missing. And even at this time in lockdown.
Yes, that is it. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kushagra, for being here. And I know ये interview बहुत लोगों को help करेगा who are deciding between EEE and CS, scope, AI के बारे में, ये buzzwords ये मैं भी बहुत ज़्यादा सुनती रहती हूँ in every industry. And I think this is not only for engineering students, but also for other industries as they are exploring these different areas. This interview would be very helpful for them. So thank you so much.
Oh, so thanks for having me on your platform, and I've been able to do justice to the questions that were asked. And I genuinely feel that if if I'm able to impact even, let's say, once 10% of the students will listen, then I think the interview has served the purpose.
Perfect. It definitely will. And I'll get back to you. Whatever the students reply, whatever the comments
Okay.
on the
Sure.
thing, I'll definitely get back to you with that.